I was told the first question was, is creativity dead? And I almost didn't want to ask the question because I don't think it is. So that was our jumping off point. But I did say, we were chatting backstage and I was like, I don't know creativity is dead, but I definitely think it's changing. And I definitely think, especially as you discussed earlier, the thing that is mostly shifting a lot is craft and the association with like the manifestation of how creativity exists.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, creativity is not dead. I mean, if it was, that would be really depressing. And I mean, it's what I've been asking myself every day for the past like 10 years when I wake up. It's like, am I still creative? I've been using AI a lot. I think a lot of my work doesn't really show it because I do like the feeling of something being handmade. I feel like people who are looking at content that I make are interested in things that happen in the real world. AI has, like, I work by myself mostly. I think of all my ideas by myself. I create content by myself mostly. And so I've been trying to use AI, ChatGPT, Runway, to create images, help me, because it's a lot of work to create content, multiple times a week. So, but I'm not interested in AI kind of changing the final product, because I feel like people are still craving reality, especially given that there's more AI content. There's a lot of cool AI stuff, and it's a lot really impressive on the surface.
It's also a lot of slop.
Yeah, which I love. Like,
I miss the old AI.
Really shitty, like, memes, cringe, like, really niche stuff, like I'm sure you guys do.
Do you remember when it first came out and it would be like trail cam Shrek, like I think there was something kind of nice about the early AI experiments to me because they weren't really they didn't feel like you would ever confuse them with something made by a human. They were their own kind of weird fever dream. And I remember seeing a video recently that showed like the progression, I think it was maybe Dolly, of like the earlier model to now, and it's like it now looks like AI language, like the really glossy kind of like vectory shading, whereas the earlier one was kind of like a bad pencil drawing. And I think in that way, like that's why I feel so many people don't like it showing up at the end, because it now has its own kind of aesthetic world that goes ahead of whatever you are trying to do. Whereas if you're using it more as part of like a tactical process, like you are, the sort of like aesthetics of it aren't as visible.
Yeah, I feel like people are really good at telling if something is real or not. Of course, AI is getting better and is trying to cross that barrier where you can't tell if it's real or not. But a lot of the creative choices people are making with AI, not everyone, but it's like to make some sort of hyper-real, polished, high-production thing that we were all like aspiring to make before AI with, big production teams. And it's like kind of achieving your dream as a young creative to make something that looks like the movies. And for a lot of artists, that is what their goal. But I think that the audience is not craving more higher production value in a sense. They're still craving they're craving content that comes from regular people like them. But I'm trying to find out the easiest way. It's really hard even just to make simple on the street videos. It takes a lot of energy. I've been using AI to create images to pitch ideas for clients and to help my team point them in a visual direction without doing a bunch of Photoshop work.
We were talking backstage about, I interviewed PlayLab, which is a studio based in LA recently, and they just did the album cover for F1000, Mac Miller?
Yeah. Post Malone.
Post Malone, sorry. This is showing my ass here. I don't listen to this music. But and it's a video of a pickup truck dropping into a lake. And they talked about how they used AI to sort of get approval for that because they were dropping a pickup truck into a lake and they would needed a lot of money to do that. But then when they actually came around to it, they did actually drop the pickup truck into the lake because there's something meaningful about the fact that it actually happened, even if it is imperceptible, even if it could look exactly the same as the mock-up. And I think I have mixed feelings about does I think there's something trippy and sort of uncomfortable about the fact that it could look exactly the same and doesn't really matter. But I think that was like an interesting example. And part of that too is that they could also kind of monetize the behind the scenes. And I think increasingly like AI is more behind the scenes than front of camera, but also at the same time behind the scenes content is being more pushed forward because it's a way of proving that something was actually done. I've been seeing this a lot with like art direction, like Skims did a big stack of pancakes a couple months ago and they posted it and it was like one image and then 9 tiles after it on Instagram of just like people making pancakes, the pancakes being stacked, like here it is on a stick. Because I think that was a big part of sort of I can't believe they really did that. But I don't know if that's something you experience with your work.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have always loved seeing how things are made. I mean, the show How It's Made, that show is like one of my favorite shows. Also, like when I'm talking to clients about creating content, maybe you guys have heard this before, but just behind the scenes of how something's made, even if it's like a boring software product of like literally who's the person typing the keyboards like on the screen that's then creating the software for that person. Just that story is always interesting. But yeah, you're right, especially with AI when people are guessing whether it's AI or not, proving that it's not is probably of value and it creates more content, which everyone wants. I'm also like the things that I like to follow about AI is actually that behind the scenes of how people AI, like what was the prompt? If Skims had made that in AI, like I would have gone through each of their stories if they just showed me each prompt, because I'm just curious as a creative how to make that as well. But yeah, it's funny because the pancake thing, because I've seen that and it was referenced by a client recently. I thought it was AI. I thought it was, and I guess it makes it cooler that it wasn't.
I mean, maybe this is conspiratorial, but I've seen some people talking about how there's recently been a lot of promos for movies where actors are doing weird things. I saw this for Ariana Grande in Wicked 2, The Wickening. I don't know what it's called. And she's like, sort of has like a little wand and she's like, and someone was like, oh, this is so that they can set the stage to use AI for this in 5 years. Like we are creating, even our natural content looks more AI in scope, either in a conspiratorial way, so it becomes easier for those two worlds to blend, or in a less conspiratorial way, just because now that is what so much content looks like and what people are expecting, that like making stuff that kind of looks like AI, even if it was real, is just sort of where the world is moving.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. There's this one guy I follow, actually, I don't know his name. This older black guy who's hilarious. He goes on the street and just like points at things like, I'm going to turn that glass of water into wine, and it just AI does it. It's like a good combination of just like walking on the street and just like commanding things. And the guy's hilarious. I don't know what I was saying there, but I think that's a good example of creating entertainment with.
But then I think about like one of the most entertaining viral videos last couple of years was that guy on the skateboard drinking cranberry juice. Right. And like that was great and there was no concept. Like it was just like this guy being himself. And I do think like I wonder what AI is going to do to like lo-fi, because I think you can use AI to create lo-fi, of course, but I think there's something about like the way that AI jumps right to final is interesting to me. I think we're sort of like so much of whether that's creative direction or storyboarding is about these like interim processes of like, okay, I'm going to create step by step. I'm going to do a really rough sketch. And videos like that, like maybe, yeah, you're not actually going to turn that thing into wine, but like what would a video look like that was sort of a sketch for that didn't use AI? I do wonder like that skill set of the sort of like quick iterative process, I think is something people are now associating with AI in that kind of like build fast, break things way. But in reality, to me, it skips a lot of really important sort of process steps.
Yeah. Also, AI, maybe some people are better at it than I am, and I prompt it a lot. It's exhausting to like write. I end up making stuff for real because it's harder to make it with AI sometimes.
No, exactly. I mean, I teach undergrad at RISD, and same thing, I had a student who wanted to do a mascot that looked like an avocado. And she must have prompted like 60 of them. And she kept being like, oh, well, I like the head on this one, the body on this one. At some point I was like, you can Photoshop them together. Like you are wrangling this tool to try and make this perfect little icon. You could trace over this now. Like you can do so many things. And I remember especially the depressing part, she was like, well, I'm just not good enough at 3D rendering to do it the way I want in the time of the assignment. And I was like, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can, you're never gonna have time to learn 3D rendering. Like nobody, it's not like, this is the time, you are in college. Like you're not gonna in 5 years be like, now that I'm paying rent, I really wanna learn 3D rendering. So my feeling is like, you have to grapple with it at the time. And I said like, make a shitty 3D render and make that part of the joke. Like that's how you do it. You just sort of have to stopgap.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life I've just been like surrendering to how I actually make the thing, and I'm very impatient. I don't like buying expensive equipment, and so that's kind of just built into the aesthetic over time, which has been great because it allows me to make things quicker, publish them faster because the style is lo-fi. And I think that's a real advantage to just surrendering to what you can do. And even if it's shitty, if it looks like handmade, there's blemishes. I feel like that's cool. Like, and might as well just embrace it because it's just a lot more work to polish out the details. A lot of the like higher production, elevated type production that I also do with clients, so much of the work is just in the last 80% of polishing. So there's definitely an advantage, and thank God social media likes the like ground level pedestrian content is a big advantage for people who like us who are trying to like make content every week. Yeah.
Well, I feel like the thing that I find a lot of AI isn't as good at is either the sort of ideas or the narrative. Narrative especially seems to be something that it really struggles with. Like, I am embarrassed that I'm still very active on Twitter, which I also refuse to call X, but whatever. And there's always people on there. It is kind of interesting. I feel like I'm like, have this like window into the other side of the world. And there's a lot of people who'll be like, hey man, here's this like mini feature-length film I made using AI, and it's like some cat like walking through a building, and then suddenly it's outside, and you're like, oh look, there's a mountain over there, and it's like each one is this little disconnected vignette, and first the cat's green, then the cat's blue, and it's like you're supposed to just sort of ignore it. And the thing I really struggle with is like there's no narrative besides the surface level of like thing does A, thing does B, thing does C, and I think that's maybe why I am so like anti-majority of AI. Is it just seems like people just don't have ideas, and they've decided they already didn't have ideas, and now they're like, great, now I don't even have to think about it at all. And I do wonder, like with that side of it, like that's where I get a little itchy. I think it was OpenAI, no, I don't know. Someone launched something, I think it was Facebook Meta launched a new thing that's like an AI generator called Vibes, like today or yesterday. And to me, I was like, what a perfect like accidental encapsulation of what they're doing, which is like making something that has no real content. It is exclusively vibes. And like the fact that that is a positive to them, to me, sort of like reveals everything about the project.
Yeah, I feel like when new tools come out, I mean, this is a big one, the tool of AI, but when things become easier for people to actually make stuff, there's probably inevitably going to be like a lot of people experimenting. Maybe they don't have like big ideas, but they're just making surface level, interesting graphics, which I do all the time when I'm experimenting with a new software or tool. But yeah, I mean, there are a few like great AI creators who are really making some interesting things. I can't name them now, but yeah, it's just, is it entertaining or not? And there's just going to be a big influx of stuff that comes out when there's a new tool, right?
And maybe that's it. Maybe it's that I'm like so ready to be proven wrong. If someone like can show me something where I'd be like, wow, that's really amazing and interesting, and I have had my mind changed. But it's like every time I feel like I'm living in a bizarro reality where someone will be like, yeah, look at this amazing AI video, and I watch it and I'm like, yep, that sure is a video. Like, I don't really know what to do with it. And my other really, now I'm just ranting, but my other really big pet peeve is when people are like, oh, no one complained when we introduced the printing press. Like we're like, a tool is just a tool. You have a thought on that?
Wait, about the printing press?
About the printing press? Yeah. Are you a fan of the printing press?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Okay, pro printing press here. But I just think a lot of AI stuff, when they frame AI as a tool, people's argument against it then is like, or argument for it is like, it's just a tool. Tools have been introduced in creativity for the last 200 200, millions of years, hundreds of thousands, I don't know, numbers. But a thing that I think about a lot is, yes, like, you know, the printing press didn't ruin creativity, but it did mean there were a lot less scribes and calligraphers. And like, that's a skill set that has been partially lost, a lot of that knowledge as a result. And that's neither good nor bad. Like, that's the cost of progress. But I do think it's like a lot of the conversation around AI seems to be more about like, rather than is it killing creativity, to me, it's like what kinds of creativity, what kinds of processes and crafts have been made more obsolete and therefore will have less people doing them and perhaps disappear.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned it before, but like as a creative, I'm trying to like just go with the flow, not to like attach myself too much to a specific process. A lot of my work is idea based, which is, I think I'm lucky because that can be expressed with different tools. I think that about the question about the where I'm going to get worried is when AI has better ideas than me, I think. And I am trying to ask it. I'm like, clients are paying me for ideas. I'm trying to come up with ideas. I'm using all of my resources. AI, like what would Pablo do in this situation, is still not making the connections that I'm looking for to create a great idea. I don't know why.
But when you say like, is it going to have better ideas than me? I guess I'm always curious, like what that means on principle, because better according to who? One of the reasons...
To me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons I like art is that it's expressing something internal that somebody is experiencing in some way. So even if, respectfully, your idea might be stupider, it's like, is it better by function of being from, like, it's an ensouled idea, you know?
Well, like, for example, yesterday, or the day before, I posted this thing I did in my kitchen where I bought these car door lights, like these luxury car door lights. When you open the door, you get the BMW on the pavement.
Car door lights. Okay.
So like when you open your door, there's like the Mercedes logo that projects itself on the sidewalk. I bought a bunch of those cheap ones and I put them on my cabinets in my refrigerator, in my fridge. So the idea that I wrote down a couple of weeks ago was put car door lights on my refrigerator. And AI could have given, like, it didn't. Sometimes I prompt AI, like, what's a bunch of funny ideas to do with car door lights? Because I know there's something fun you can do it, put it somewhere else. If it had told me, put it on your refrigerator door, that would be like, okay, awesome, yeah, I'll go do that. That's a good idea. And I'm like that. I like decide that's a good idea and I go do it.
No, I think it helps that I think the noodling in on like car door lights to begin with is probably still a huge part of like, to me, a big part of your practice is about like taking things that we all take for granted in the general world.
I'll literally prompt it like, what are parts of a car that would be funny somewhere else?
Yeah, but I think even, and it's like, I'm not answering that.
I would say, and I do this, is like, give me 200 ideas. And I'll read it.
But don't you feel like now you are spending time as like an editor, and that's not like, it just feels that's the fun part about making this stuff is getting to sit there and think of the ideas, even if it sucks. Like, I think, and maybe I'm coming at this as like a writer and a designer, but it's like every time I start around one brand identity or an essay, I'm like, okay, this is it. All the juice is gone. I'm not going to come up with anything. And, you know, there's like 2 days where I hate myself and I think everything I'm writing or making sucks. And then I usually come around.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm just trying to find these ideas all the time, and just whatever will bring me the idea, I'm down for.
I guess I think I just blame more like the ecosystem in commercial environment we've created where it's like, I don't like that. Why is it that we should be forced to do these things faster? I mean, I know like this is just me like,
it's just the nature of
banging on the walls of my enclosure, you know, like it is what it is, but.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants some stuff faster and cheaper. So do I. I want to make stuff faster and cheaper. Like, I'm really love entertaining people. That's what like drives me, and entertaining them with new ideas. And I mean, I agree that I don't know, I feel like there's a question about taste. And I feel like in the end, when I'm creating something, it's like, it's what is my point of view in terms of like the next decision I'm going to make in a creative process, or like what I want to post next. And I'm like, if there was an AI idea, an AI tool that I could input it, and this is a new idea no one's seen before that people would like, I think I would do it. It would be sad if that was the only way to do stuff, but I don't know, I just love entertaining people.
I saw Matthew McConaughey get interviewed recently, and he was like, "Oh, I want to make an AI that's like only trained on like my journals and my childhood upbringing and like the things that I like to read, blah, blah, and that would be great. Like that's how I think AI should work." And someone had like commented, like, "Man, that's called your brain."
Yeah. Well, the one thing I was going to say is that I think what's helping us, or the idea of being like, true to the process, being an artist in the process, is in not using AI as much, is that I think the audience feels a little bit betrayed when there's something's AI. It depends if it was like a really good idea. Like I've laughed at some hilarious AI stuff, but it's rare. But when I get comments sometimes, is that AI or not? And I'd rather not like betray the audience into thinking that I did something in an easier way, unless it's so entertaining that it didn't matter how I made it.
Well, I think it helps that you have the credibility of being someone who was doing this before the advent of AI. So if you dabble in it, you have more sort of, I don't know, like goodwill from your audience maybe, or understanding, like they trust that you at least like at your core are like a funny, interesting guy. And therefore, even if you were using AI, it was augmenting a process rather than replacing it. Whereas someone who could started tomorrow, I think has less of that built-in credibility, and no one would, if they're like the whole thing is generated by AI, the whole personality, the whole idea set, I think that's where people feel especially betrayed.
Yeah, I feel like there's some like there's some like when you see something in your feed from a creator that you like, there's some trust and you're like willing to spend more time with it. But also, I really think that most people are just going 1 second at a time, and they're just deciding within each second, is this entertaining to me? Will I watch it for another 3 seconds?
No, I agree with you. I think I just hear that and it depresses me. Like,
Why?
I mean, I don't know, like when my mom sends me a video that's like someone pouring coffee between Starbucks cups, and it's like, did you know that the venti and the tall are the same amount of coffee? And I'm like, this is an AI video. I just think like maybe the entire landscape we're in right now, I'm like, I don't know if entertainment to me is enough of a good reason to like sacrifice reality.
Yeah. Wait, isn't the whole point of entertainment?
No, I know, but I think like what I don't know. My grandpa used to be a waiter in the Catskills in the like Dirty Dancing era, and that was like where a lot of these early stand-up comedians started. And I think there's something like I really like the purity about like a person on stage with like nothing but their brain. And I think what I like about videos like yours, and there's another artist, like Vian Stefan, I think is his name. He does videos where it'll be like, there's a candle and you light the candle, and as it goes halfway down, like it's like sort of proto Rube Goldberg stuff. It's like this simplicity, as I said, the lo-fi that I mentioned earlier. And I guess I think like to me, good entertainment is doing a lot with a little. It's like the early OK Go videos, but they're just like on, and it's funny because now OK Go is funny. I noticed like they're no longer a band; they're exclusively like video content producers. But they do these crazy Rube Goldbergs now, and I was like, yeah, it's not that good. What was so fun about it was like how much they did with nothing. And I think so much of the best art I see is like, I used to work at the Whitney, and we had an exhibit, and it was this guy who was disabled and didn't have any access to art supplies, and all of his paintings were made with soot, like dust and spit. And there was something really meaningful to me that like this person had such a drive to create that they had no tools, they had no access, they had no training, but they just had this thing inside them they needed to get out. And I think like that's why I just find so much of this stuff depressing, where it's like, that's what, as I said, what I love about art is that I'm like seeing what matters to somebody. And in that sense, if someone's using AI as like ping pong process, part of things to help express something, it's true. But that's why like the ideas to me is where I'm like, I don't want to cede my ideas away. Like that's what I like about art. I like connecting with people through their own self.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm also entertained by a lot of crazy AI stuff. Like you had mentioned Shrek. I remember, I don't know if this was made with AI, but someone had taken the Westminster Dog Show and replace the dogs with Shrek. Or it was like when the dog races around the tunnels up the little, and it was Shrek, and maybe it was with AI, maybe it was really good VFX. it was really entertaining. It was like 60 seconds long. I watched the whole thing.
So much of AI to me, though, is this like, what if X, but Y? Like the earlier thing was like, what if it was Balenciaga for Harry Potter? And I actually think, again, like a separate rant, but I think a lot of art has become that, a little more about surface aesthetics. I saw something recently where it was like nunchucks, but in the style of like a traditional Chinese porcelain pattern. And I think a lot of art has been reduced to this like weird juxtaposition effect of like, what if we put these two things together? Whoa, you know? And I think maybe that's also, to me, AI isn't like coming up with truly novel concepts. It's always taking multiple, I mean, that's just how it works by function. So it's taking things that are disparate and mashing them together to make something new. And it's like, I don't know, sometimes it feels like jangling keys where it's like, wow, I know what that is. And like, that's what makes it funny. Like, I think I would rather enjoy a video where it was like a bunch of people running around pretending to be dogs, like, you know, because then you have the chance to create something different that isn't just that intersection. Sorry, I know I'm being like such a hater.
No, it's fine. I think it's good. But I think there's a lot of interesting things that happen when you shoot real footage and then you use AI to like help make those magical moments, just like you would with After Effects. I feel like the stuff I'm making now is enhanced by AI just in terms of the process of VFX, which I use. And so that's just personally as a creative, that's like the best stuff I've created with AI is giving them actual like real references to use, like taking my own photograph of something, then giving that info to AI to animate the photo, for example.
Well, I think goes back to the taste idea, which to me is like taste is defined by inputs, not outputs. Like, well, and sure, the output of being able to choose the specific which of these things you've generated is the right thing. But I think my gut says, and again, I'm also like very inexperienced with actually using AI. I'm very like armchair couch analysis. But I think being able to, like, I suppose if, you know, like twist my arm, like being able to put in the right obscure inputs is a way to help ensure that the output is going to be more tasteful or interesting.
Yeah, I think you do have to decide in the end if it's worth publishing. I think taste is just like point of view, and I think people have good like points of view that when I'm interested in hearing a novel idea, I go to a person first, or get real feedback on something, I go to a person first. I've never asked AI like, what would be a cool thing for me to wear today, or
but like,
because I'm trying to impress people most of the time, or all the time, right? And so the best point of view to understand whether I'm entertaining someone or not is from a person.
Yeah, I mean, the taste thing also, like, as you said, it's like being able to select the output, but I guess I start thinking about like, well, what is it that actually gives one person the ability to recognize value in that output? And as I said, I think it is, again, the inputs in terms of like, do you watch a lot of films? Do you read a lot of books? Do you consume things? And I think the most interesting tastemakers that I can think of are people who are also creators in some capacity. It's people who are, you know, like Chloe Savini, like people who are sort of, when I think of having a unique perspective, it is sort of this weird conglomeration of all these things they've done, but most of the time they're also making stuff, because I think that's kind of a feedback loop. You kind of need to be like consuming stuff, making stuff to test it out, trying again. And I think like that's again with the AI, it's like if you're getting those outputs and you're only ever looking at that output, I mean, there's all this data I know showing you can't even train, like one of the issues with AI is you can't train AI models on AI content because it creates this like weird garbled feedback. Like it actually needs those original human inputs. But I think the same is true of humans. It's like if you are only feeding yourself AI material, like I'm not even saying you can't look at it at all, but like you need to always be feeding in this other stuff and threading it in, like, or else you're gonna sort of just, your point is gonna get narrower and narrower. It
reminds me of this, someone gave me advice. I was doing an internship at a magazine where I was photoshopping a bunch of people, and I was trying to like, you know, recreate an arm where there wasn't one, and, you know, taking, I don't know what I was doing. Anyways, the idea was that it's easier to use the real pixels to recreate the image than just make up the pixels. I don't know, that's what I was thinking.
I say this to students all the time where it's like I'll watch some student trying to like do fake pencil texture in Illustrator, and they're using all these different applications. And I'm like, it will literally be faster to write it down and scan it in than it is to try to make something random. One of my favorite poster designers is Braulio Amato, if anyone knows his work, but he is known for like finding weird textures in the world. Like he'll have like a messed up chair and that will become like the background pattern. I think that's such a good example of like true randomness is something that I think is very hard to fake.
Yeah, there's still a lot of good material just in the real world, and it's oftentimes more satisfying to use real material than digital.